Super Rugby TV ratings here in New Zealand are down, folks. They are really quite looking pretty bad compared to some recent years. We'll go over these numbers in a second and some possible reasons for that, and we'll try to put it a little bit into context with some of the other competitions as well. So we are solely talking about New Zealand TV ratings. So it's nothing about overseas viewers. It's nothing about Australian viewers. It's only households in New Zealand, and the numbers are down. To give you those numbers, this year, the average number of New Zealand households watching a Super Rugby game live on Sky is 103,000, which is down from 140,000 last year when it was the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman and Aotearoa, down from 196,000 in 2019, which admittedly is a World Cup year, when you've got the rugby hype going on, and 182,000 in 2015. Again, another World Cup year. I would have been interested to see maybe like a 2018 in comparison. So no COVID, but also no World Cup to compare. But certainly 103,000 is almost half of what we had in 2019. So not a great look. Where have all these viewers gone? I would say, certainly, some people have just cancelled their Sky subscriptions. That could be for a number of reasons. Sky is our paid broadcaster here in New Zealand, if you weren't aware, for watching Super Rugby. So some people it'll be financial. You maybe had impacts of COVID. Maybe you're just cutting back. Maybe you've just lost interest in Super Rugby as a competition. There's a load of reasons why people may have cancelled their Sky subscription. That's certainly one factor. And I would say, if I was to guess without knowing, probably that's the biggest bulk, as people have just cancelled their Sky subscriptions. Maybe some people just aren't tuning into the games anymore, but yeah, that's part of it. However, I do think there's going to be a sizable chunk who have moved over to streaming, because these numbers are only for people watching traditionally. You know how those ratings companies put those boxes, I've never seen one, but those boxes in a select number of households around the country, and they kind of aggregate those average numbers of those viewers to project how many people across the entire country are viewing. That's the people they're counting. So streaming, like, that's me. Sky, a couple of years ago, released like a sports streaming package where instead of the old model of having to buy their standard subscription and then put sports on top, you could just buy sports and it was streaming only. That's what I use. I don't buy any of the other rubbish. I just buy the sports, and that's only streaming. So certainly some of these viewers have transitioned to streaming. So I think those numbers, from what the article, which comes from One News here in New Zealand, says the streaming numbers are actually okay. Would it account for the loss of 90-odd thousand? No, certainly not. But yeah, that will be some of them. And also, the highlights of Super Rugby, to put a positive spin on things, are actually pretty good. Like, Super Rugby's highlights attract more viewers than, like, the Champions Cup in Europe, than the URC, which includes South Africa, than the Premiership in England, generally pretty easily. Super Rugby, like, I had a quick look, in the last kind of week or two, like, Super Rugby easily gets 100,000 views on each of their YouTube highlights videos. Now, at least Super Rugby's highlights are all in one place. Some of the other competitions spread their highlights out through different pages. But yeah, like 73,000 for the Force and Rebels, 200,000 for the Chiefs and Crusaders, 150,000 Highlanders and Crusaders, Moana Pacific Hurricanes the other day, which was a bit of a massacre, 93,000. So some pretty solid numbers. The New Zealand games are a little bit above the Aussie games, but certainly some pretty good numbers. In comparison, Champions Cup, you get 56,000, 80,000, 105,000. Although, as I said, they split the highlights between a couple of different YouTube channels. BT Sports has some of them, but not enough to catch the Super Rugby numbers, if you know what I mean. The URC is terrible with their highlights. They take like a week to put up the extended highlights, so they only get a couple of thousand views. But Premier Sports, which is their main broadcaster in, I think, Europe, they put out highlights and they get 84,000, 91,000 for like the South African teams playing. They always rate really highly. The other day, Scarlets and Cardiff, that's only 13,000. So yeah, it kind of depends on which teams are playing as to which highlights rate really highly. Premiership, 86,000, 52,000, 71,000, 103,000 for Exeter and Bath. So you can see the Super Rugby highlights numbers are really the highest. Even if you put all the other highlights packages together, I don't think they're going to match the Super Rugby number. So that's good, but maybe they're too good. because they put out the highlights really fast. They're usually like 7-8 minutes. They're pretty high quality highlights compared to some of the other stuff you see. So maybe Super Rugby's highlights are too good that people are like, bugger this. I don't need to pay these jokers. I can just watch the highlights. I don't know. Maybe there's some people on streaming. What do you guys reckon? Also, they did mention that attendances haven't been great. I don't want to harp on too much about attendances. I've done a whole video on Super Rugby's attendances before. But they don't announce them for every game. But they seem to be around about 10,000. Some games just over 10,000. Some games just under 10,000. Which is comparable to other rugby competitions around the world. I mean, in the UK, Leicester averages like 20,000, which is way more. But Newcastle averages 5,000. And the URC, it's hard to say with the South African teams because they've had COVID restrictions on. But the Irish teams, apart from Connacht, all get over 10,000, maybe 11, 12. The Welsh teams and Scottish teams under 10, like 6,000, 7,000. So, yeah, New Zealand's numbers aren't terrible. I think Aussie numbers are around between 7 and 10. I think Suncorp always gets the most. Other stadiums get a bit less. So, certainly a drop from what we used to see in Super Rugby. But, yeah, it is still concerning. I don't want to just say, hey, the highlights numbers are great. The competition's super healthy. This is certainly a wee bit concerning. I do think these are factors. But, yeah, what do you guys reckon? Have you cancelled your Sky subscription if you're in New Zealand? How do you guys watch the games? What about in other competitions around the world? Do you view the highlights? Do you watch them on YouTube instead of watching the full games? I certainly do that with some games, but I try to watch as many as I can. It would be interesting to get more info, but as I said, this was kind of a source that provided a real journalist with some information, so it's hard for us to kind of do any digging. But anyway, you guys let me know what your thoughts are, and I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.